Every generation without fail, we get a slew of promises from these console companies that consoles are going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do everything in between. If you even go back, right, Microsoft included a 4K HDMI cable with the launch Xbox One. Yes, that beast of a console, that VCR-shaped console, it actually had a 4K ready HDMI cable. Now, that console is in no way 4K ready, but they still promised that. Look at the stuff that they promised with Crackdown 3, right? Totally destructible environments, the power of the cloud. It makes it 800 Xbox One powerful, right? And then look what we ended up getting, this broken down multiplayer where the things disappeared that you blew up, and it was like the games happened so fast that you couldn't even blow stuff up, and then, you couldn't even play with your teams. I don't know. So we get promised all kinds of stuff, right? Even on Sony's side, they promised demos of every game. It didn't happen. 8K. Is it happening? It might. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with yet another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel, and it means a lot to me personally. Thank you to all the old subscribers, new subscribers, and everyone in between. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you really want to support my channel, a simple like goes an incredibly long way with me. Or if you really want to support it, hit the bell so you're notified of all the content. I do daily content, so not everybody does that. I try my best. I put a lot of effort into these videos for you guys and girls, and I really do just appreciate some of this, the support and the kind where you'd be surprised how a nice comment or a message on one of the social platforms can go, how far that can go. So yeah, very, very much appreciated. So thank you guys very much. Now, with the Xbox One X, I love that console, right? I think it's a great console, but at the same time, I do feel like, it's one of those situations where, we've kind of got this idea that what next gen should offer. Is it going to be 4K? Is it going to be, is it going to be something else? Is it going to be 8K? Is it going to be 60 frames? Is it going to be 120 frames? Is it going to be above that? Like, those are things that we all kind of have to look at and sort of decide for ourselves what we expect. Now it's coming out that, can the PlayStation 5 do 8K? Well, maybe. So will we actually see 8K games? Surprisingly, we see some very interesting information from Microsoft developer talking about the PlayStation 5, and it sounds pretty interesting. So Microsoft and Sony actually have both mentioned that their respective next-gen consoles are capable of hitting 8K resolutions, but a lot of people aren't convinced, and I can tell you, it's one of those things where I'm not really convinced. Maybe an indie game or a racing game, possibly, but to be honest, a lot of companies are making these promises. We always get them promises every single console generation. The PS4, for instance, claimed to be able to hit 4K, but it wasn't until the PS4 Pro that we actually saw some, and even that wasn't like a native 4K machine. Yes, like GT Sport and some sports games and stuff were, but other than that, we didn't see a lot of that. Most of the time, they weren't native resolutions. We had dynamic, we had upscaled, we had this, that. Even the Xbox One S was 4K ready, right? But we didn't really get 4K games on it. We got, 4K HD Blu-rays and stuff like that. But what are we going to get next generation? I think we're going to start seeing possibly some 8K stuff. I feel like in the first few years of next gen, 8K is going to become a little bit more mainstream, where the prices are going to come down and we might see it. There was a long, interesting interview with a person who has a lot to say, named Asa Garcia, who was a Naughty Dog and Rockstar alumni who is now working as senior gameplay engineer on Microsoft's new initiative project. They asked for his take on the matter of 8K, especially from a developer's perspective. As per Garcia, whether or not PS5 or the Xbox Series X can hit that gameplay depends entirely on developers. And he explained that though both consoles are technically capable of 8K, to hit that target, games might have to make compromises in other areas, which is far from unheard of in game development. And so whether or not games hit that resolution would depend on how hard their developers are willing to push for it. He said, and I quote, "It's difficult to say, to be honest, because like you were talking about the PS4 being able to push 4K, it can. It's more about where you want to put your boundaries. If you push really hard on a lot of systems, for example, pushing up to 4K will be difficult, at least if you want to do it natively. So it's always a question of trade-offs. How far do you want to go, and how much benefit do you actually get from doing 8K? He also added that they're going to be true for the upcoming consoles as well. Though developers can strive for 8K if they want, in doing so, will they choose to make compromises in other areas? Garcia hopes that focuses should instead shift to higher and more consistent frame rate counts. He said, "My specialty lies on gameplay and AI, not graphics. So I couldn't tell you for a fact, but I do know these consoles are capable." He said, "I think from my point of view, it's more about where you want to draw the line. Would you rather push for 8K but scale down other systems, or would you rather push those systems and scale graphics to 4K? It's really up to each and every developer themselves. It's a lot like frame rate. I personally feel like most games should strive for 60 frames, but it's a trade-off. Would you rather push 60 frames and then scale down on other things, or the other way around? Now, it's really not news to anyone in the months leading up to release of new consoles. Hardware manufacturers go a bit wild with promises because they want to sell you on everything, but we probably won't see a lot of stuff being effectively made for probably a good few years. 8K might be an interesting prospect, but with 4K is not even industry-wide right yet, it's hard to imagine 8K becoming like too widespread, at least in the immediate future. So it will be interesting to see what we can see from these console developers in the future and things like that. But it was much more interesting to actually hear developers talk about 8K and the potential for that in the future. Is like, I don't really think that it's something that's completely needed, but I do feel like it's something that we'll probably see before too long. And I do feel like both Sony and Microsoft probably have consoles that are ready. I already did a video about where I was hearing things about Sony wanting to do a like a PS5 Pro, so that they could actually go out there and sort of take advantage if 8K does become a thing, for the main point that a lot of people by that time could possibly really want to take advantage of that and buy like something like that. The reason why we got an Xbox One X and the reason why we got a PS4 Pro was because technology advanced enough to where we could see those 4K TVs were starting to sell a lot and people were very, very interested in them. And so with that being said, it was just something that made a lot of sense to come out with upgraded hardware. Now Sony has already begun rumblings of doing a PS5 Pro in a few years, because they really are kind of ticked off that Microsoft has the power crown, and 8K might become a little bit more ready by that particular point in time. And also the PlayStation VR 2 supposedly is going to get some kind of release or some kind of idea about when it's going to come out around that point as well. So it's going to be very fun and interesting to see what happens and see if we're going to be able to see a true difference. I would love to continue to see like these things continue to get better and better, but I just feel like the more that they focus on stuff like resolution and like 8K, and it really kind of dulls down the worlds that these games kind of survive and strive to be a part of, right? I mean, you get less foliage, you get less clear details, you get less a little bit of everything in exchange for like picture quality. So I personally don't mind the different ways of checkerboarding and the way that they've gone about like 4K and stuff like that. Like, I thought that Unreal Engine tech demo was absolutely fantastic, and that was like 1400p kind of upscaled to 4K or whatever, and it looked absolutely mind-blowing, better than things in native 4K, and that's even per Digital Foundry. So we do have a lot of this stuff to kind of take in and kind of ponder on, as it were, as we go into next generation, because of course we're getting all these things promised to us. What are we going to actually get delivered on? That's the real question. If you look back and say, what did Microsoft promise us? What did they deliver on? What did Sony promise us? What did they deliver on? I would probably almost 100% with certain say Sony definitely delivered more on their promises than Microsoft. They promised to do a lot of stuff, obviously not everything. Like, supposedly we were going to get demos with every game. That didn't happen. On Microsoft's side, there was a lot of interesting things that just didn't really happen either. I'm always sort of drawn back to the whole Crackdown 3 situation, where that really was kind of a letdown with what we were promised, and how the power of the cloud was going to drive Xbox One to be as powerful as 100 Xbox 360s or whatever it was. But it was just one of those things that I just feel like all these companies are going to do all they can to hook us and get us into their ecosystems. And I just really feel like that's going to be something that continues to happen, and I think this might be the one chance where people really get us to kind of bite more into what they're going to be offering than any other time. And I also just feel like that's going to be a great thing for gamers everywhere. Everybody involved is just going to be an awesome thing. So again, it is kind of strange to see developers kind of talk about somebody that worked for Microsoft kind of talk about what's capable with the PlayStation 5, also the Xbox Series X. Like, I wouldn't doubt that both could possibly get and push that boundary of 8K, but what would even be the point so early on? I don't really foresee that for a little while, but it is going to be very interesting to see how that works out and exactly where these consoles take us into the future, particularly if we get a PS5 Pro quicker than not. You know what I mean? It just sounds like Sony really wants to kind of do that and sort of take that crown back. So it's going to be interesting to see if that works out. I'm very interested to see it, and I know you guys are probably interested to see where all this stuff leads. Just like me, I will link this article in the description so you can check it out. If you're new to my channel, I link all news stories in the description. If it's opinion, it doesn't need to be linked because that's my opinion. And if it is a leak or rumor, I try to link those when I can because some of the big sites do run with those. But if it's something that somebody tells me in confidence, obviously I can't link that. And I always tell you to take it with a grain of salt. So, those are kind of the rules of the channel. And I really do appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your day to check out one of my videos. It means a lot to me. I want you all to stay safe, happy, and healthy. And game on. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.